For more on this, we can speak to former Lions captain Sam Warburton. Great to have you with us, Sam. How are the squad going to be feeling during the build-up to the first test?
This is very different. It's very different because, and particularly for a lot of the players, some of them might have gone on the Lions tour 4 years ago to South Africa, but of course it was during the pandemics. There was no crowds, there was minimal traveling, so no fans were out there. So having spoken to a lot of the people involved at Lions, a lot of those fans who did originally book tickets for South Africa just rolled them over into this Australia tour. So Australia's obviously got a slightly more admirable climate this time of year than, for say, New Zealand. So I think given all these factors in, the Lions is back open to fans. There's going to be a massive amount of fans travelling this week. And those players who went to South Africa didn't experience that. There's only a handful of players who experienced the New Zealand tour going back in 2017. It's very rare to go on 3 Lions tours. So you're only looking at maybe 3 or 4 players who've actually experienced that. So for actually a big part of this group that are going to play on Saturday, this is brand new. They might have played for the Lions in South Africa, but they haven't experienced the Lions from a fan's perspective when you get 30, 40,000 traveling fans coming over. So I think when they probably a Thursday this week when they walk onto that team bus, go into a training session, they'll notice the hotel foyer is suddenly just absolutely chock-a-block with fans, and then it really hits you. This is different to anything else that you would have experienced. So it'll be a brand new experience for a lot of these players.
So you mentioned there about Thursday, walking through the hotel lobby. What does this week look like from now, Monday, up until that first test on Saturday in terms of the training sessions, etc., including the kind of intensity of it all?
Yeah, well, what's actually nice for the Lions, they normally have a midweek test around Tuesday or Wednesday this week, and then they'll play on a Saturday. That's what's happened historically. But this is the first time they actually got rid of that midweek test because it really interrupts with the preparation for that first test. You know, in tours that I've gone on, you're traveling every 3 or 4 days, whereas now the Lions have got, it'll feel like a luxury for them. They've been traveling every 3 days this tour, but they can park up in Brisbane Monday, and they've got a full week preparation where they can just stay in their hotel, the same training ground, the same weights room, all these small things, they do help the preparation. So Monday, Tuesday will be rugby and weight training days. Wednesday will be traditionally a full day off, be a light day Thursday, a light training day Friday, then you roll into the game Saturday. But they can actually fully prepare this week for once. The players, I do quote one of the players saying it's been a bit of a funny feeling in the camp because they just can't get their teeth stuck into training because you're either recovering, you're either on a plane, or you either got 1 day's training ready to play, or you're playing, of course. There's been a very disjointed preparation up until now, but that's Lions tours, that's normal. But I say that's a new experience for a lot of these players, but I think they'll be thankful they got a full training week this week, so they'll be better prepared going into the first test this Saturday on Sky.
And where do you think the team are at following those warm-up matches? How do you think they're looking?
Well, they've won 5 in a row. They lost the first game to Argentina, which is arguably going to be the hardest game they have on tour before the 3-test series against Australia. But they've been going quite well. There's been a lot of experimentation. So traditionally, the 2 Saturdays before the test series, you start streamlining that test teams. They might have played together, but there's been a bit more experimentation. I don't think the test team has been as obvious to pick on this tour compared to maybe tours gone by. Tours gone by, there might have been 10 to 12 players pretty early on. You say if they're fit and they're playing reasonably well, they're starting the test series. But I think there's been a lot more 50-50 calls, and there still is, I think, in this test series. There's been a little bit more experimentation. So I think the test team is going to be very similar to a team that we saw play last Wednesday. So they would have had one run out together. Some combinations have had a couple of hit outs together. But I don't think it's been a full-blown conclusion. So they are on the right trajectory, but there's still going to be plenty of improvement. And even on test 1, they're still going to be together, this team, for test 2 and test 3. So we'll see a lot more continuity for the Lions building towards, test 2 and 3, which is really crunch time for the Lions.
It's obvious that everybody in the squad wants to play. When do you normally find out what the team is? I know when we find out, but when do the players find out? And how does that change the atmosphere in training?
Yeah, it's a good one, actually. It's all about being test team. So, of course, it's an honour to go on the Lions tour, that to be selected in the 33, 35-man squad. Can't quite remember how many, but that's obviously amazing to do that when you consider all the players in the home nations. But you want to be in that test 23 and really in that test 15 that starts. That's what it's all about. And the players are always second guessing, team selection meetings. What does that mean? Am I first in the pecking order? Because you're first in the pecking order, whether it's for your club or for your country. Now you might be, you're going on a Lions tour and you're third in the pecking order. And I remember when they picked the team, which is traditionally on that Tuesday, because they might even let the boys know on Monday, because you want to give them as much preparation time as possible to learn the calls and how their role might interchange if they move positions. You want to give that team as much preparation as possible. But normally those sessions on Tuesday, they're quite heated because you're all very supportive of each other, but there's 15 who are starting and there's 20 who aren't. And those 20 are very competitive alpha type sort of personalities. They're annoyed they're not playing test teams. So that normally comes out and is expressed in one of those sort of contact sessions you get on a Tuesday, but everyone's still supporting the first team, but people still know they have a chance to prove their worth and try and get in tests 2 and 3. And the Lions historically over the last 3 years have used around on average like 30 players for a test series. So the 23 that gets picked this Saturday, there's likely to be between 5 and 7 changes over the course of the next 2 games as well. Just make sure that you stay on as a player. Just because you're not picked in the first test doesn't mean you won't be involved in test 2 and 3.
You mentioned before the hotel lobby is going to be packed, and we heard from Maro Itoje just a few moments before we spoke to you, and he said about how the streets are going to be lined. How important is it, the support that the Lions get?
You know, when you hear players and they'll say, oh, like the fans are the 16th man, you're thinking, well, that's probably the marketing team telling the Lions players to say that, so the fans come on board. It's not marketing. Like, the players love it. I genuinely remember running out for, it was a second test, and in 2013, I was actually, people wouldn't have known, but I went out for the warm-up alone, not even the game. It was just the warm-up, half an hour before kickoff. I was welling up because of the fans in the stadium and the atmosphere. And it's not just in the stadium. Like Maro's right. Maro's one of the few players who's experienced real Lions tours in 2017 in New Zealand. And that was bonkers out there. And it'll be the same. It always is on Lions tours. But, even just like from all of match day, you pretty much, I did as a player anyway, I hibernated in my hotel room because I just wanted to focus. Like, I couldn't focus because you're just getting hassled. And I love the fans in the build up to the game. I love them at match day in the stadium. But prior to the game, I'm really trying to focus. Some players embrace it a bit better than I would have. Everyone's very different in how they prepare. But you can't really escape the hotel. The bus drive in forever, the half a mile, the 1 mile it is from the stadium is just, the streets are just jam packed with fans. And it's quite, if you haven't experienced that before, it can be quite overwhelming. It's amazing though, because it's supportive, but that is really what makes Lions tours very special. And these fans aren't just hopping across the channel either to go and watch us play in France. They're spending thousands and thousands of pounds to come on the other side of the world. It's a 30-hour trip door to door to Australia, and the players massively appreciate that. It's what makes it so special. So for any fan who might be even watching this who's traveling out later, I promise you, like, it doesn't go unnoticed. Like, it's massive for the players, and that is really what makes Lions tours so special.